again, Iowa House Republicans have done absolutely zero to address affordability in this state. We had bills as House Democrats over the course of the first few weeks of legislative session. We introduced expansions of first-time home buying assistance bills. We introduced family paid leave. We introduced a bill to freeze residential electric and natural gas rates. All of these things go to affordability, increase the minimum wage, and expand and cover the ACA subsidies. And zero has happened on any of our bills, and they have done absolutely nothing to address affordability. We, as Iowa House Democrats, stand firm that we will continue to fight for these things through amendments and a procedure in the House that is, I think, unique to the House, where we can actually pull up bills called a Rule 60 motion. So you will be seeing us attempting to pull some of these bills after funnel out of committee to get votes on them by a procedural motion. We want to get everybody on the record going into the election where you stand on affordability, lowering costs, and protecting Iowans' rights. And we will be getting votes on these things. Instead, they focused on, again, divisive social issues that have nothing to do with anything that Iowans care about. And we will stand firm with those issues from the Iowa House Democrats, including this afternoon. We will be debating a very, very, very inadequate school funding bill, and I'm going to turn over to Heather to discuss that and our position and what they're going to do.
Hi, Representative Heather Matson, House District 42, and I'm the ranking member on the education budget and also serve on appropriations and have been assigned to this bill. So Iowa House Democrats are focused on making Iowa #1 in education again. What we learned from traveling around the state last fall is that schools and students need resources and trust. What Republicans are offering is inadequate, especially after over a decade of underfunding. Today we'll be proposing a 5% increase to start climbing out of survival mode funding. That is approximately $400 more per pupil. We're doing this because it is above the rate of inflation and because it's what schools are telling us that they need, both to make ends meet and to implement the unfunded mandates that frequently come out of this Republican legislature. It also reflects Iowans' priorities: to reduce class sizes, ensure rigorous classes in every subject, keep electives that for so many kids are what make life worth living, and expand career pathways, as well as attend to our kids' mental health and physical safety in schools. I want to give one quick example, and that is my own school district of Ankeny. With what Republicans are proposing, that is going to be a deficit of approximately anywhere between $5 and $6 million over 4 years. The school district is still working on what those cuts will actually be, but things that could be included are cuts to electives at the secondary level and making adjustments on class sizes at the elementary level. When we think about Ankeny, it is a growing district. It also is a district that budgets very conservatively. And so I will say, if we're having troubles in Ankeny, then we know there's truly a problem. Our proposal is actually the responsible choice for Iowans, and I'm glad we're bringing it forward today.
Representative Matson? Senator Evans, during the debate, said that, in fact, due to measures other than the funding, the reading measures and so forth, that actually we're seeing improvement in Iowa schools over the last few years. Do you care to comment?
Well, certainly there have been some improvements on things like some literacy things and some math things, but that's not really just addressed within school funding as a whole. We need to talk about, when it comes to school funding, what we need to talk about is everything from dealing with unfunded mandates to paying the boring bills, honestly. It's covering health insurance increases for staff and teachers. It's property insurance increases, it's utility bills. All of those things are not being funded appropriately from the state level, and that is putting huge strains on general fund budgets across the state.
The president signed an executive order yesterday on glyphosate and making sure that that is available for production. I know the past couple of years there's been discussions in this building about whether there needs to be a state level law sort of limiting liability for the company that produces this weed killer. Just kind of curious if either of you have thoughts on the president's executive order or the possibility of that law passing this year.
Mind if I take that one first?
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Janice.
I mean, there's also a proposed settlement out there where Bayer has proposed to settle all outstanding claims for a substantial amount. And that is one of the reasons why why my caucus argued on the floor last year and the prior year that we shouldn't be taking away any Iowans' right to sue if they believe they have been harmed.
I agree 100% with Janice, but I will also direct you to his Secretary of Health. Bobby Kennedy Jr. was one of the lead attorneys when he was in the private sector to sue on glyphosate and get these settlements. And if you go to his website when he was an attorney, he talks about the harmful nature of glyphosate and why it's important that we have the ability to get justice for people that have been harmed by glyphosate. So it's not exactly making America healthy again, is it? So I think his Secretary of Health would disagree.
So do you think that the executive order changes the chances of that bill passing in the House this year, or affects that?
I don't have any, it's too early to tell. I know they've struggled with it the last couple of years, and I think they will continue to struggle with getting votes for that. And I don't see, I'm having a hard time understanding why we're moving forward with this. Because it really, just like, I will say this, and another issue that came up yesterday on, in Judiciary Committee where they tried to restrict the ability for the two corrections officers in Anamosa that were killed, trying to restrict their ability to get justice through their families and suing the state for their negligence. And I don't think it's going to move out of committee today. Once the Republicans figured out what it was on that restriction, I think they feel like they were duped by the Attorney General in trying to, every time the Attorney General loses a case, she wants to change the law.
Yeah, and I do think there's a reason why I wanted to look to make sure I had the figure right, why Bayer is looking at a $7.25 billion settlement on this, because I don't think, I can't speak for that company, but they clearly want to put this behind them, and that's a substantial amount.
The restrictions on abortion medication, those got through committee in the House, looks like not in the Senate. Leader Weiner, do you have any insight on what happened? I was expecting that bill to come up in Judiciary in the Senate.
I don't. It was pulled at the last minute before the Judiciary Committee meeting. I'm grateful it was pulled. We're prepared to argue against it for all the reasons that are probably familiar to everyone in this room, including the fact that we're already last in the nation when it comes to the ratio of women to OBGYNs, and we don't need further measures that are going to push even more doctors out and make it even harder to attract and recruit more folks to come here and stay here. That said, it remains a live round in the House, so I don't know if it's going to come back, and we will be vigilant.
The Senate State Government Committee advanced a bill that would allow continuing state funding if a budget isn't passed by the end of the fiscal year. What concerns have you potentially heard from your caucus on that bill?
I mean, it is one of the most, if not the most important thing that we as legislators do every year, which is to pass budgets with state taxpayer funds. It is maybe the muscle memory of working in a bipartisan way isn't very good anymore, but that's exactly what we will be doing and will need to be doing if there's a Democratic governor next year and we have split governance. It is literally our job, and it's a bill that says, oh, maybe we shouldn't be doing our job. We absolutely must do our job, and Iowans will welcome it if we manage to do it in a bipartisan way.
Leader Meyer, you may hear from your colleagues across the aisle this afternoon criticism that Democrats have been trying to punch at Republicans in both spending too much in the budget and not spending enough on SSA. What would be your response to that?
It's about priorities. Obviously, education is a #1 priority for the state of Iowa. We want to make Iowa #1 in education, and unfortunately, you know, they can't have it both ways. They can't talk about how, oh, there's plenty of money, right? They always say, oh, there's no, what I call a fiscal death spiral. There's no fiscal death spiral. We've got plenty of money in reserves. But at the same time, they're really, to be quite honest with you, restricting school funding, probably the #1 thing that Iowans care about the most. And they are below inflation on school funding. I think that's where it comes down to priorities.
Senator Weiner, 2 or 3 Democratic bills were scheduled to have subcommittees and then the subcommittees were canceled. Did any Democratic bills get a subcommittee hearing in the Senate? And do you have any insight why they would schedule subcommittees and then cancel them?
I guess they looked at the bill. My best guess, honestly, is that they looked at the bills, thought they looked like good bills that might actually help Iowans. They scheduled subcommittee meetings, then they realized they made a mistake because they were bills that had been proposed by our caucus. One of them had to do with capping the cost of insulin. Another had to do with the bill that my entire caucus signed onto with respect to manufactured housing, which is one of the most important forms of affordable housing in this state. And yet we got all the way to the point of everybody offering their times, and then they never scheduled the actual subcommittee. So apparently it was a mistake, but it was a mistake that really shows us where people's priorities lie. I still challenge them to figure out how to give us subcommittees on some of these and how to move some of these bills, whether it's manufactured housing, whether it's a bill that I filed that would create an interim committee so that we can look at solutions for long-term care and nursing homes. We really just want to work for Iowans and would love for some of these not to be mistakes, but to actually go forward.
Just to clarify what you mean by mistake, do you think that committee chairs assigned a bill to a subcommittee without realizing it was a Democratic bill, or do you think that they assigned a bill to the subcommittee and then somewhere higher up on the leadership chain said you can't do that?
One of the two. I couldn't tell you which one.
Forgive me if either of you said this in the first few seconds before I snuck in. With the end of funnel week, could I get any of your thoughts on bills that you're glad are still moving or bills that you're glad are not?
I think, Aaron, we anticipated that question, and we probably each have a list for you.
Glad to help.
There's some right here. Funny you should ask.
So we're obviously happy that some of the anti-abortion bills are not moving forward, happy that at least one of the anti-library bills died so far on this side. We did advance bills to protect firefighters, to provide career guidance to college students, to make unemployment requirements more accessible to Iowans with disabilities, and to expand the state public defender's pilot project on child welfare. In addition to what I said, we also stopped a bill that would have made hunters of all ages less safe. The bill to waive no-fault divorce isn't moving forward, thank goodness. And we had the abortion criminalization bill that was in the House, but it did not move forward.
Yeah, I would echo what Leader Weiner said. Obviously, from our perspective, we expected to criminalize the abortion bill to be moving. We're happy that's not moving. Obviously, on the Senate side, no-fault divorce. I think that was a very strange one that a lot of the attorneys in my office were very interested in and thought that would create more business for them. The Medical Freedom Act that was in the Senate, I think that we're happy that that's not moving. And then what I mentioned earlier on the government immunity bill that prohibited the corrections officers from seeking justice, we're happy that's not moving forward as well. I think that generally speaking, one of the most interesting things about this session, and I know it's funnel proof, but the fact that we have not seen any kind of agreement yet on property taxes, given the fact that we're almost halfway through the session, is very interesting to me. And I don't know how we're going to get there on that with so many other things that are still pending in the legislature. Some things we're happy about is the farmer's right to repair bill, which is moved forward out of agriculture yesterday, and then the violations, corporations and that violate labor laws bill that has moved forward, and approving access to subacute mental health care, I think is a good bipartisan effort to really bring forward and focus on that stuff.
Leader Weiner, is there any insight you can give us into where things stand from your perspective in the Senate on eminent domain? We haven't seen a vote, obviously, since that Senator Clemish's bill came through committee.
Right, I'm sorry to disappoint, but I unfortunately know no more than I did last week or the week before. We're waiting to see what moves forward and if there's a compromise offered. Otherwise, we're just where we were a couple of weeks ago.
Do you think that the proposal on the budget continuing regardless, it could be an effort to kind of get around the situation we saw last year where senators refused to vote on a budget before there was an eminent domain vote?
I actually think it's more aimed at the possibility of us ending up with a Democratic governor than with that situation.
But would you say it would still have that effect of heading off another eminent domain, budget showdown?
If it were to pass, it would, potentially, yes.
House Speaker Grassley last week talking about school funding had mentioned keeping track of how school districts are spending their money and pointed to what's happening in Iowa City right now with their $10 million deficit. Do you have any comment on that and keeping track of that spending when you're looking at percentages?
I would just say that this is like a situation where the superintendent in Iowa City is now answering to the school board and to the citizens of Iowa City, and we're trying to sort that out. I think it's a separate situation from what we're dealing with overall on school funding. If you look at what an Osage is dealing with, or a Storm Lake, or the districts that have been cut to 4 days or are having to cut programs.
One of the things we've seen talked about in previous sessions is lawmaker pay, and over in the Senate, we're seeing a bill maybe taking a different angle and cutting the daily allowance of lawmakers, potentially looking at shortening session. I was curious what your thoughts are on something like that.
This is one of Senator Buslow's bills, and I really cannot resist quoting Senator Tony Bizignano in that particular subcommittee meeting, where he referred to a lot of these bills as not being serious since the Republicans control the calendar. They control the bills that come forward. And he said, quote, "When you file bills that aren't intended to go anywhere and then you kill the bill and then you complain about the time we're here, I would say the closest analogy would be an arsonist who is also a fireman," end quote.
Well, as Representative Meyer can tell you, Kevin McCarthy got us out here on March 31st one year.
Absolutely, we got
So,
done in 80
any
days.
thought of loading him to the Senate? You can send him over for the rest of the session?
Absolutely not. We got out of here one year when I was on staff. I was his chief of staff. He's obviously not my chief of staff, but we got out of here in 80 days that year.
Yeah.
And I think that, that's about priorities as well. So we did what we needed to do. But, and I said this last week in this same press conference, which is that they're not serious. They're not addressing what people are concerned about, lowering costs, education. They're doing bills on annexing Belin, Illinois, and paying for a billionaire's football stadium, to bring it into Iowa. Who wants to pay for a billionaire's football stadium with tax dollars or annex Galena, Illinois? I mean, I like Galena, it's great. I'm from Dubuque, right? But Galena's these are not serious proposals. Instead, so when you're talking about wasting time and that they think that the legislators can cut the time in half, if he's got a serious proposal to look at that, but I agree with my senator, Bizignano, in his analysis.
Any last questions, folks? Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much.
Thank you all.